Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Your Favorite Black Lobbyist podcast. I'm Alexis, and let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to the current events segment of the show. I want to kind of get into the topic of data centers. I know specifically in Georgia, that is a big hot topic. And what's going on in the Georgia legislature is actively considering multiple bills just related to data centers and coming to the state of Georgia. Where in the city, where in the areas should these data centers be placed? I know the conversation, of course, is on the environmental side is water consumption. On the other side of it is just, of course, land mass and the utility of it, and just the cost, right, of these data centers, and just all that goes into it. And I think just again the public perception of AI and technology. And so I just figured, just with this current episode, it'll be fitting to kind of just give you a heads up or give you an insight on what's going on legislatively with the data centers. And so, just some key legislative trends. I think there's some bills that would suspend or eliminate tax incentives that currently make Georgia attractive to data center investment. Definitely some proposals to impose moratoriums on new data centers construction, while lawmakers are kind of studying their impacts on community resources. So how this is going to impact community in the area that it's in. Also, legislation aimed at increasing transparency and just oversight of water and electricity usage of data centers, right? So, of course, I know the big issue in 2025 around the election time, especially in Georgia, was the Georgia Power Bill and just the consumption of electricity and energy, right, and how that's impacting a lot of households right now. And so I think, with the data center conversation, energy is definitely a big topic, and how data centers use a lot of energy, and just how that's going to not only just impact funding and utilizing the data center, but also how it's going to be impacting communities around those data center areas. Um, and so I think these are just discussions to kind of reflect the broader questions about how states and communities are kind of balancing economic growth and community access and costs to these data centers coming into the area or coming into Georgia specifically. And of course, you're thinking, well, why does it matter? I think the biggest thing of why it matters is, like again, breaking down economic incentives and growth, right? Infrastructure and demand, transparency, and the local impact that it will have in the area. Um, when we are talking about political and policy related issues, all of this again impacts your everyday life. And sometimes we don't look at it that way, but it does. And this is not to take a side, it's just to give you a perspective. It's also just to give you awareness, and it's to educate you on what's happening in your area. And as we are approaching election season, as we're approaching the midterm elections and of course the general elections in November, I want you to be as informed as possible when these bills are coming through the legislature, and you're knowing what's happening and how it's going to impact your community, right? So it's not always going to be a partisan issue. Some things that are policy related is going to impact everybody, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent, or you don't vote at all. Um, I think how we engage civically, and especially how tech plays a part into that, is a really big topic of conversation. I think a lot of people and a lot of us should be engaged in and be aware about. Especially if you think that, well, I don't involve myself in tech or AI or these data centers. It doesn't involve me. I'm not a big tech company. I'm not a part of that. I don't even use that stuff. But you do. You use it in your everyday life and everyday convenience. And the biggest thing and the biggest part I want to just drive home is how we are just again aware and educated on that. So the biggest thing I want you to pay attention to are, bill numbers and the status. So make sure you're tracking the legislation that's coming through. You have access and opportunity to do that. If you're in the state of Georgia, please visit the Georgia General Assembly site. In any other state, you have your own state site where you can track legislation on the House and Senate side and the bills that are coming through, especially during the legislative session. And you also have access to see on a live stream video those committee hearings that are going through the different bills. So definitely please make sure you're staying tuned on the bill numbers and status, right? I would say the second thing to pay attention to is infrastructure impacts. How large tech companies interact with utility companies, local zoning, and environmental planning. Again, you're thinking, well, that doesn't concern me, but it does, because especially if you live in a rural area or even in a suburban metro Atlanta area, it all impacts you because land is a big thing. Energy consumption is a big thing. Zoning is a big thing. And again, you want to make sure when these centers or these things that are evolving and coming into your area that you want to know how's it going to impact you, whether positively or negatively. So just being aware of what's in your area and how that thing being in your area, the entity being in your area impacts you. Whether it's a new business, a data center, it doesn't matter. Whether on a small or on the micro level, on the macro level, it all impacts you. And also the last thing is just economic policy. I know I mentioned how the economic season that we're currently in. Again, you can argue with me whether we're in a bad or a good one, but I definitely think that economic policy is going to be a big thing to just make sure you're paying attention to, understanding how these incentives are structured to not only just help the entity but also help people, and just seeing the connection between tax policy and industry, right? Tax policy between the tech industry, and just how, again, that is going to impact you and your household, how that's going to impact your business, and how that potentially can impact, you know, your the way that you are navigating um, your finances in this economy, right? And so, I would just say the simple takeaway with all of this, to wrap all this in a big red bow, is right now Georgia is just currently debating how to balance technology growth with community needs. And no matter what side you're on, that's just going to be the takeaways. How, you know, the Republican side, how the Democratic side is going to figure out how we are in this tech space, in this tech world, and the growth of that, the evolution of tech. We want to make sure that it's also in conjunction with the community and its needs, and it's not superseding that, right? So, the moment it shows how tech is developing and public policy intersects is going to be a big way of how to be informed. So, I just want to make sure you are understanding both sides of it, and that all that matters is that, as citizens who are civically engaged, is just aware of what's happening in your area and in the state that you live in. So thank you so much for this portion of the current event segment, and definitely stay tuned for the episode. I think you'll enjoy it. Today, I have a very special guest, Drew Stephenson. He is a multi-talented, multi-hyphenated man, actor, engineer, and now founder of an app that he's going to get into with this episode. So please give a round of applause for Drew Stephenson, our guest. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. So I know, I always say my introductions don't do my guests justice all the time, but I always give my guests the opportunity to explain to the audience, who is Drew, right? And how did we get here? How did we get to the man that most people see on social media, right? The multi-talented, multi-hyphenated man. How did we get there?
Yeah. Man, it's been a journey, to
Yes.
say the least. Started in Brooklyn and didn't really see myself doing what I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to be an actor or a musician. I always knew
Okay.
that was one of the things I would get into. Started playing instruments when I was 7 years old and started learning the piano, the trumpet, the French horn, and then started going into writing poetry. And then the next thing you know, my parents decided we were going to move from New York to Atlanta.
Okay.
Just,
Oh,
you
she
know,
just, yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna go to the South.
yeah.
Completely different.
What
Switch it up.
it was a little rough too where we were at. We were in Long Island, Suffolk County,
Oh, okay.
Amityville at the time. It
Yeah,
was a little rough.
it was rough.
It was rough. So it was like,
We gotta get up out of here.
we got to go. And I
Yeah.
can't afford, now that I've got a brother and sister, we can't afford to send everybody to private school.
Got
So,
you.
and we went down to Georgia, and that changed everything. I started getting into technology. I started to kind of double down on the acting, Of course, being in Atlanta, the movie industry started booming.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then, while I was in school, I said, I'm going to continue to stay to my creative roots with acting. And I
Mhm.
started training at the Company Acting Studio, Premier Actors Network. Shout out to Dwayne Boy. That's my guy. I love
Okay.
that acting studio in Atlanta. I trained at pretty much all of them. And then, worked my way up to New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, finished up their program, and then finally came down here and started booking, the Vampire Diaries, and started booking all these different shows. And I was like,
Okay. I'm rewatching Vampire Diaries, so that's
hey,
I'm like, oh,
season 6, check me out. Now,
okay,
now,
okay.
now the thing about it was though, is like all that success at the beginning made me think maybe I need to change back to the creative side and
Mhm.
leave technology. But my parents being Jamaican,
Mm.
they're Jamaican
Oh.
immigrants, and I'm first generation. I didn't have that choice of just pursuing creative, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so I kept my roots in technology, kept my roots in creative as long as I could. And then the industry just started to shift.
Yeah.
We had the first strike in 100 years. And
Yes.
at the same time, AI driving change in
Yes.
technology. I went from overworked and highly paid to overlooked and underpaid in so quick of a time.
Mm.
It was getting laid off every year in tech, and that was the stability factor. And then acting, it's like you shut down the entire industry, and then it already takes time to collect your money, then it takes
Yeah.
time to generate new jobs. So that was a period of time where it was like, I've got to find something else. I've
Yeah.
got to do so. So I started to focus on myself. And when I started to focus on what I wanted and building up my own, that's kind of where this idea came from, where I was
Mhm.
like, I want to start building my own product, but I don't know what product to build.
Mhm.
And then I saw my parents and my brother and sister having arguments. Who are you voting for, Trump or Kamala?
Yeah.
And my parents were like, Kamala all day. I
Yeah.
better not see anything else, right? If I
Right.
see anything else, and then here comes my brother, the new, the new,
Oh.
the new modern man, he's saying, you know what? I actually think Trump has a point, and so that created issues.
Yeah.
And I'm the type of person that looks at it and says, okay, well, what's the truth? What's the facts? Where are the
Mhm.
facts at? So I started looking it up, and I started to see that there was just a lack of transparency in government.
Mhm.
And so that drove my motivation, along with all the strike and all the other politics going on, to say, okay, I want to increase the transparency. So I started
Yeah.
building my own products and building this, Govlytics.
That is I love again hearing people's stories because you see the start and not necessarily the finish, but you see the journey, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I always say everyone's story and journey is not linear. And I think people see again, they see, oh, well, I saw him on TV, he's an actor, or like he's building this app and now he's doing this. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know the behind the scenes. You don't know why I was inspired, where it came from, why and where I came from, why I had to move and how I got to Georgia.
Yeah.
So I think all of that is imperative in how I think in just in our story, right? And how
Yeah.
we build out things and how we do things, right?
Yeah.
And also how we pivot.
Mhm.
Like we have an idea for ourselves, and that idea can mold into other things and get us into other ways and avenues that we didn't even think would get us there.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm just always enamored hearing about my guests and their journey just because I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think people need to see it's not a get quick rich scam, or it's not
Yeah.
an overnight story, or it's not always wins and successes. Sometimes there are fails, sometimes there are periods of drought
Mm.
where you're just like, okay, I need to make a pivot because ain't nothing moving.
Right. And
Right.
those usually drive the pivot so
Yeah.
much stronger too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you kind of gave way a little bit of what inspired you to build out this app. So for those that are unfamiliar, kind of give us about what is this app and how is it supposed to help give more transparency into our government, into what's going on politically right now? Because I think a lot of times we see, as we discuss and as I talk to other people, it's a lot of misinformation going on. It's a
Oh yeah.
lot going
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
right? And what we see in the media is maybe not always what's being translated properly into our homes, into our conversation, and it impacts our family dynamic a lot. And I think, outside of just 2020, but 2025 also showed us how this is thoroughly impacting family dynamics, our relationships that we're building, and
Mhm.
just the conversation that we're having around transparency, around correct or proper information. And because it's we are in such a tech heavy world now, aside from our convenience, that is the quickest way for misinformation to make its way around because everyone has a platform. Everyone
Mhm.
has a comment and an opinion, and they have a way to give it.
Yeah.
So I just want to get into what this app is and how it is going to help shape information and transparency in our political system.
Yeah. So there's what I'm realizing is there's a number of tools out there right now that gives us a little bit of transparency,
Hmm.
but the information's so segmented that it makes it hard for people to find it. They
Right.
used to say if you want to hide something, put it in a book.
Ooh.
So we're
Read.
with all of, yeah, exactly, with all of these docs. So what are they doing? Writing 10-page documents and calling it a
Yes.
bill. And then the bill transforms over time. And so you have people writing Ukraine relief effort bills, but then they have text in there about LGBTQ, or they
Hmm.
have things about Africa, or they have things that are just not related to the title. So they
Hmm.
make it really hard for us to even know what's going on.
Right.
So, with the narrative AI, I saw AI as an opportunity, not just as something that, was affecting the tech market, but it gave me superpowers.
Hmm.
So I used AI to say, okay, I'm going to go out and get all this information, put it all together, and give it to people in a digestible way. And
Hmm.
so I created a quiz that lets people go online, look at the actual legislation in a very digestible format. It's very simple. Like, do you
Yes.
believe horses should be used for consumable meats?
Oh,
Like, most people are like, we have a bill for that?
yes.
Exact.
I'm telling you, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
you get.
people make the darndest things,
You,
okay? And you're thinking like, why is this even something that we're having a but you'll be surprised.
right. There's so much out there that's like it seems like a no-brainer to you, right?
Right.
And then they make it politicized.
Yes.
So when you go in there and you see some of these questions, you're like, okay, I'm sure everybody said, like, no, we don't want
No.
to eat horses, right? Or of course, let people go to prison in their city, right? Don't
Right.
take them and ship them out somewhere else, right?
Hmm.
It seems like no-brainers, and then you look and you see, okay, did the GOP, did most Democrats vote for this? Did most Republicans vote for this? And then you see that it's very political sometimes on
Hmm.
how it's aligned and how they vote, and they usually vote in unison.
Yeah.
So this quiz gives you a chance to vote on real legislation in a very consumable way, and then see how you stack up with everybody else. And it'll give us a chance to not necessarily separate or divide, but build a bridge to each other and show that you are not 100% one or the other. I believe
Yeah.
about 30% of the country believes that they are like either fully Democrat or fully Republican. It's
And they're not.
silly. Yeah,
They're not.
you're a percentage of both. You agree with
Yeah.
some points on both. So this gives us a chance. And me personally, it's the test that I took said that I was 55% Democrat, 45% Republican.
Really.
Yeah, so I agreed a lot with what Republicans were doing as well, and I agreed more with Democrats than Republicans. But that's just the reality
That's
of it.
exact.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you brought that up because, well, one, I wanted to pay homage to your quiz. I didn't get a chance to finish it, but
yeah,
let me say this is that it is very digestible. It is it's easy. It's user friendly, and I think the thing is when I do finish it, I want to upload my results because now I want to see what I am because it's a spectrum, right?
mhm,
It's not a this or that, and I think we've politicized very minute things or just everything is politicized that people think they are this or that. In
exactly.
reality, it's always been a lot of people fall into that moderate space, and yeah, you may lean in the moderate space a little more Republican or more Democrat, but it's rare that you are this extreme,
Right.
right, on the extremist sides, and that's why I think we're seeing our system not working at its full function
Mhm,
because it's literally it's meant for both sides to work together,
exactly.
right? And
Yeah,
so it's not a we don't have a dictatorship, right? We don't have an authoritarian, we don't have that, right? That's not how our system was made.
mhm,
So when we are both on extreme, that's why we have government shutdowns.
exactly.
That's why we had this recent one, right? Or
Yeah,
the partial shutdown. That's why we it takes a lot longer for things to get done because no one can agree on anything. And
yeah,
then of course you get into those household dynamics where you're arguing because you're like, well, you better vote for this. And people are like, well, I can see the other side, but it's a lot of people aren't even open to hearing that.
exactly. And that's how you know the system's broken.
Yeah.
If you're arguing inside of your own family,
Yeah.
system is broken.
It's done.
Yeah.
So I really love this app or this quiz for because it shows again that you we're not just one or the other. right? And it also gives us the opportunity to actually know. And one thing I want to say about the app is that it allows you, I don't want to give too much away, but it allows you to pick like your top 5 issues that you care about, right? First,
Yep.
it tells you put your zip code in. So one, it shows you who is your representative, who actually represents you in your district,
Yep.
which is great because a lot of people don't even know their congressman and they don't know their representatives.
Exactly. Yep.
And then it also tells you pick 5 like top issues, right? And it gives you a plethora of things, even things where I'm like, dang, I didn't even know this was,
Yep.
you know. And then out of those 5 issues, right, that's when you'll get the list of questions or bills that people don't even realize. And on some of those questions I didn't even know, right? And I had to sit and think. And it, I know it tells you in the beginning it takes approximately 15 minutes to go through, but I think it's a great opportunity, especially now in Georgia, specifically, we're in the legislative session. And I
Yep.
think it gives voters, right, especially in 2026, we're in an election year, it gives voters an opportunity to know who and what they're voting for so they can have informed opinions and decisions.
Exactly. Like, am I going to keep this person in house, even though I don't agree with anything they're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And I think sometimes we have to go alongside with, which can be difficult, like what is a person saying? And then what is the actions that they're doing, right? Because sometimes
Yeah, they don't
it
match.
don't add up.
And that's the point. They represent you, though.
Yeah.
They're supposed to represent. So if they're not representing you, you should be incentivized to vote them out and not just stay in line with your party.
Right.
You know.
I always encourage my audience, specifically, I always encourage them to say, you know what, you have to do research, but you have to make sure that as you are researching that you know exactly who you're voting for and why you're voting for. And also that may change, right? I voted for this person. They're not doing what they need to be doing. They are public servants, right? And
Mhm.
you have the authority, you have the ability to vote them out if they're not doing what they um, are doing. And that's just holding them accountable,
Yeah.
right? If they said they're going to do something, then they need to do it.
Exactly, because most polytech now I'm seeing is built on like surveilling us
Mhm.
and checking us out, or just not even really reporting what they're doing, so to
Right.
speak. But like, yeah, we need more transparency, FEC data, all that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know just in your story, you gave that, again, what inspired you, your mom, your dad, your brother, and just that dynamic. Um, but I would just say, what challenges do you think everyday people face when trying to stay informed or engaged that you, outside of just your own family dynamic, that you just also might have noticed that you just felt again inspired to be like, I need this app because I also recognize it's not just only my family.
Yeah, no, it's everything. It's the work environment. We go into work environments, and and as an engineer, I'm one of the few uh, black people in the building
Yeah.
99% of the time. You know
Right.
what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so I work around people that have voted for Trump and are proud of it a lot
Hmm.
of times. So I remember times going into work where guys are like, he won, and they're celebrating and they're doing
Yeah.
all this, and as I walk in, it gets quiet.
Yeah.
You
They're
know, they
like,
don't
oh
even know.
shoot. Yeah.
They don't even know who I voted for. They
Right.
just
They're just
assume.
assumed. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so there's a divide there, and then it creates hostility, creates animosity between people who actually probably agree on a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
So I started to see it in the workplace. I see it every day. I see it weaponized against people
Hmm.
because they're saying things like, oh no, MAGA this, or oh no, Democrats this. And really, it's just two heads of the same snake. We just need to work together, because when this boat sinks, we're all sinking. So
And that's the biggest thing.
yeah.
Like we're all in this together.
Exactly. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to move right away. I want to,
Right.
I want to
Right.
still stay
Right.
here for a little bit.
Right. I was just getting comfortable. I just
Yeah.
got this place, Right.
But
So I think that's good. But like, what are some misconceptions also that, let me say this. What are some misconceptions that do people have about political technology? Because I think, like you mentioned, everything's politicized,
mhm,
right? Everything down to, do you want to eat horse meat, or do you want to eat, like, why
I
is that a
cannot
thing?
believe it. Yeah.
But from your experience being in the tech space, being an engineer, what are some misconceptions, but also what are some issues that you came across when building out this app?
Yeah. There's a lot of misconception, but a lot of issues when building stuff like this. The misconception is that it's the government. They can do the work. They have the
Hmm.
ability and the resources. when the reality is
They don't.
they
Yeah.
don't, and the pay is so low.
It's
They can't pull the best engineers because
yeah.
they're not paying them
Yeah.
anything close to the private sector.
Right.
You know, why would I turn down this 200K job when they're offering me 95 at this government
Right.
school or anything? So they have a problem with trying to get technology up and running, and then in today's world of AI and with AI governance being probably the biggest thing for government, understanding how to keep the data private while still keeping it powerful and useful. It felt like they just needed a hand, you know,
Yeah.
someone to come in and just say, you know what, I've worked in the private sector for over 10 years. I understand how the big companies from Google to Apple do it. I've sold applications. I've been featured in USA Today. My apps have gone on to be featured in Fast Company and gain notoriety from the White House. Why am I building this for another company for a
Yeah.
paycheck? And why don't I actually do it for myself or do it for my people? Like, why don't I do it for us? So it just became one of those things where I said, now with AI having my back and being my personal assistant in a way, I was like, I can probably do this.
Yeah.
And I tried it. And at first it turned out to be something that I didn't really want to go too deep into it. And I just wanted to see if I could even do it. And it turned into a monster of an application. I mean, this thing is it's taken me over a year and a half to build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from let me say I think all of that is great, but also there's a point that you made that it's taking you over a year and a half to build, and I feel like most people would have just gave up.
Almost did.
Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah, but that's the real though,
Yeah.
right? That is the reality of when you're doing something, you have to do it because like you have there has to be something else besides there has to be something driving you to do it,
Something
right?
very deep. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was talking about this with another peer of mine, another friend of mine about when you are literally doing something, whether you're being an entrepreneur, whether you are working that 9 to 5, whatever you're investing in, you have to invest in it.
Mhm.
Because if you do it haphazardly, if you do it one foot in, one foot out, lukewarm, the moment it gets tough, which it will get tough, you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
bye. What am I doing this for? Right.
Yeah.
But I think it shows the reality because I think we're in such a time where there's this instant gratification. People don't have an idea of how long it takes to do something and for you to even see the fruits of your labor and not even from a financial standpoint, just to see it exist, right? To
Right.
come to fruition. So I just feel like the year and a half speech like spoke to me personally because there's a labor of love that went into this project. There's a labor of love that went into this app. And again, outside of just your personal feels and connection to it, it's also what you want for the everyday person, which I'm assuming is the app is for,
Yeah.
right? It's for the people that are like your mom, your dad, and your brother. It's like the people that may they all may get along, but they just may not have the right information. And maybe like your coworkers in, where
Mhm.
they all voted for Trump and they're proud of it but
Mhm.
they don't really know how this also could impact them, right?
Exactly.
And they also recognize that you can still vote for Trump, but recognize you also can have some alignment to democratic values and viewpoints as well,
Yeah.
right? And vice versa.
Mhm.
And so I think I just wanted to highlight that because I think that really just shows the labor of love and it also shows a reality that things aren't easy.
Oh Lord, no. This and the thing about it is I couldn't build this with just AI. Like I
Yeah.
using AI, I ran into so many rabbit holes and so many blockers and everything. So there was a technical skill, there was some technical stuff that I had to use experience on. So it's one of those things that yeah, it was the perfect storm. Like you said, there's no one that's going to be able to do what you
Yeah.
do. And I feel like in a lot of ways, God's prepared me without getting too spiritual, but God's prepared me
And we can get
for
spiritual in
we
here.
can get a little
Yeah, we have
spiritual.
God.
He's in the building. All
Absolutely.
right, all right.
Absolutely.
Well, let me let him know then. He is the only reason that I got through this.
Amen.
But he knew that I needed to do it. He knew
Yeah.
that someone who had the technical background needed to get through the hurdles because the government didn't make this easy.
Yeah.
They have so much segmentation going on. So just wanted to simplify that.
I love that you gave your praise to God because a lot of people I think forget that you don't even when you're on this journey on earth doing it alone. And I'm speaking also testimony as well just because with the business that I have in the podcast like when God told me to do it I was like, well, why? And then on
Yeah.
top of that record, and then having
It
that
was.
reflection after you ask like, why me? Why
Mhm.
not somebody else? It seems like, but once you realize it couldn't be nobody else.
It couldn't.
Yeah.
You needed somebody that actually cared
Yeah.
because they wouldn't have gotten through it. And then
Yeah.
when they ran into the hurdles, all the issues that I ran into, and then they had to have the knowledge to at least get to get past the hurdles. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit of the drive and the knowledge, but yeah, the passion I think that I had for it, with it being so close to home. My brother
Yeah.
and my mother, two of the people I love the most and dear in life, and wanting to just get to some source of truth and never experiencing that before.
Right.
That division there, it was just new to me. So I just wanted to end that. So
Yeah.
that definitely can help power you through some things. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
We have that perspective, and at the end of the day, we need to just highlight and share more of that. And I want to kind of segue into, with you being an engineer, with your experience, and of course, like you said, God played a major part in it, because at the end of the day, only you can do what you do, and only you can be able to do this in a sense of how to put the labor of love and have your background, and then what also the journey that you went through in order to even be able to get here, right? That is separate from everybody else's journey as in other engineers,
Yeah.
right? But I also want to get your opinion on what role, or what do you think other engineers and tech founders, and how do they play a part in strengthening civic systems, right? So
Mm.
like, do you feel like you are the only one, or do you feel like they should also play a major role into this?
Other tech founders should play a major role into this. I don't see as many of them do it,
Hmm.
except at like academic institutions.
Okay.
So like California, I think it's University of California. They have a poli sci category in their school that is focused on some government transparency stuff.
Hmm.
And they've actually created a lot of the information that I'm looking at and trying to duplicate in some ways or make better. But then I look at other places like vote411.org and other
Yeah.
websites like that, and it's really not technical. They're not tech founders. They're just very motivated, inspired young men and women that want to get us to the polls or
Yeah.
help us get some kind of information. So we need those technologists to take advantage of the opportunities that are here and not necessarily look at it as work, but become sort of a servant leader, a true servant leader in their communities and help people. And that's just one of those things that they have to do.
Yeah.
They have to feel the calling and feel it because it is a lot of work. It is going to be hard, and it's not
Yeah.
going to be a lot of pay. For that.
And I think, I mean, well, that's the big thing. Is like you said, you being, I guess you would consider yourself an entrepreneur, right? Especially with
Mhm.
building out this app. And so with that, like you mentioned, like I mentioned, a lot of labor of love. And just even in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of investing of your, like I always say,
For
there's a lot of
sure.
financial investment,
Hmm.
spiritual investment, mental and emotional investment,
Yeah.
right? Into whatever you're trying to do. And in having a conversation with someone about this recently, is that not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because of how much of it require, how much of you is required,
Yeah.
right, to invest into that thing. And it's not to deter people, it's just to let people know like it's a lot that goes into this,
Yeah.
right?
But you can also partner with people like me. Even
Yes.
if it's just I reached out recently. Started. This is probably the first time I'm really sharing this outside of my immediate circle.
Yeah.
But
Okay, a little inside scoop.
yeah, this is the first time I'm sharing the app there. But yeah, to my immediate circle, a lot of those guys they just offer to help in whatever way they can, little by little.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, when you mentioned that, what does partnership look like, right? You kind of gave way with just your inner circle, but have you seen it with, you know, you launching this app? Like, have you seen other people interested in partnering with you, especially in that tech space,
Hmm.
or even the political space? Have you seen other people trying to partner or collaborate with you on this to make it, to grow it, or to make it into something more?
Yeah, there's just a lot of opportunity with the data.
Hmm.
So part of the problem is that I've accrued so much information now that's so expensive for other people to get, and that's back to
Mm,
that personal investment. I've had to not only learn how to make it cost efficient, but even as it's cost efficient, it still costs me hundreds of dollars just to run my code to get
yeah.
all this information. So there are people out there that just want access to the information,
Yeah.
and so they can build their own apps. And I'm giving them, like my brother is one of them. He wants to
Really?
build his own app that allows people to do petitions and things like
Oh,
that. So I was like,
awesome.
that's a great segue from what I'm doing with the quiz. And then there are other people. So it's empowering other people with the data that I've gotten now to build their own variations of it and let them
Yeah.
kind of see. And who knows, maybe I can, sunset my app and let everybody else
Yeah.
build their apps, and I just give them the data.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love and granted maybe this was used loosely because you said give, which insinuates that give it was free, but but no, I mean that is I think it's beautiful because more about it shows a little bit more into your character of who you are as a person and who you are as a creative and also who you are as an entrepreneur. Because most people, especially and nowadays, we know everybody trying to get that money on.
Yeah, and it's worth a lot.
Yeah, I
It
mean
is
that
worth a
because
lot.
when you said, I was like, this data's worth a lot.
Yeah, that
So
it's just what it
you could
is.
sell that easily and supplement, but the fact that you're like, no, I want to be able to again, the main point is to give access and transparency
Yeah,
and you could easily sell it, right? But you don't or you don't choose to as of right now. And I think that's nice. But
mhm,
also I think it shouldn't also be demonized if you do decide to because you put a lot of labor and love into it.
appreciate that. I mean,
Yeah.
I plan on selling it when I know it's of value.
Okay.
Once I know I've worked out all the bugs and the kinks and
Yeah.
the tests are valid and everything is giving back results, then I plan to give the current Congress away for free always so that people have
Okay.
that transparency. But previous Congresses and 118 and
Yeah.
everything else, that's probably where the payment will come in the future.
Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, I know we highlighted a little bit, but just kind of going into, I would say, a little bit of your entrepreneurship journey, right? So, because I think for those that are entrepreneurs listening or trying to think about getting into this space, or even those that are engineers in the tech industry, which is in Atlanta booming,
Mhm.
right? And trying to see, okay, maybe I work for companies like Microsoft or MailChimp or different places like that, but I may want to launch or start an app, but I don't know where to like start, or I don't know
Mhm.
the realities of it or the challenges of it. So I would encourage you or just ask you to say like a two-part question: what validated your idea to launching it, but also what was the most challenging part of building out the app? Right, you gave a
Yeah.
little piece of those a little bit, but I just want you to kind of go a little bit more into that.
Yeah. So the validation step, and this comes from experience in tech. I already knew to take it small.
Yeah.
Start small. I worked with 100 bills. Today we have 19,000 on the app. You can
Wow.
look at 100. You can look at 118 and 119 Congress. You can look at all the votes that they've had across all those things. And then voting wise, the votes are, it's crazy. 255 members, 13,000 bills each. And then sometimes they have to vote twice on the same bill
Yeah.
because it didn't pass.
Right.
And so you're talking about numbers getting quickly into the millions, right? Just to get the votes, the members, and the legislation together, and all connected. So, like, entrepreneurship, the first thing I'd say, start small and try to prove it out to yourself, get it to other people, and then use other apps and other tools to help identify kind of the needs. I use something called Porter's Five Forces.
Hmm.
A lot of people in business use that to determine if a business is good to invest in. This current competition, threat of new entrants, buyer power, supplier power. These are all the forces that determine that. So once I ran it through that with 100 bills and a
Hmm.
few members, just one Congress, then I said, okay, now I'm going to do the full scrape. I'm gonna do the full pull and everything. But the second part of that is also to not limit yourself to what you know or what you've been taught. Right. So my
Mm.
parents are immigrants. They don't know anything about VCs going to
Yeah.
get funding. And it's no surprise to me that, less than 5% of us go, or less than 5% of African Americans go out to even approach funding,
Yeah.
even approach VCs. Now, less than 1% even get it, but that's
Yeah.
because we're only 5% of us are applying. So part of that is also just not accepting no before you've asked. And that I think is the other big part. It's
That's a
like,
real one.
yeah, it could happen. It could
Yeah.
absolutely happen to you. And there are people that will doubt it. There are people that will support you, and only you know what's really going to happen. You
Right.
know?
I mean, I think that's really, really great advice and a good perspective because I think, again, like we are in this space, right, where people, the water's your oyster.
Hmm.
But a lot of people don't realize that or know that or believe that.
Right.
And they
Right.
don't believe they have the access to that, especially those that have immigrated into this country, especially those that are, they have, especially in the Black community specifically, and even Black immigrants specifically, having the grateful mentality. Right. And especially from a generation standpoint, too. I mean,
Hmm.
I've heard it. I mean, I look, I've heard it from my grand, like, just be grateful for that white job with that. I'm
Yeah. You
like,
got a good job.
you
Just
got a
be
good
happy.
job. Just be
Don't mess
happy.
that up.
Don't be, don't shake
Yeah.
tables. Don't say nothing. Just
Yeah.
go there, get,
Yeah.
so you can, and I'm like,
Exactly. Yep.
no, like,
Yep.
I'm like, I'm going to do my job. But, I think there's a level of, it's okay, right? To, I don't want to say shake tables. I like shaking tables sometimes, but, but, I will say, like, it's okay to put yourself out there,
Yeah.
even if it goes against the grain,
Mhm.
even if it's not non-existent, right? Even if it doesn't make sense, or you've never seen it, or you may hear no,
Yeah.
right? I think a lot of people stifle themselves, and we, especially as Black people, but also people that are entrepreneurs, you have to get accustomed to hearing no.
Yeah. And
If you
that's
want to be successful, you have to.
and that's where I'd say acting has helped me a lot. You know,
Okay.
because you're going to thousands of auditions.
Hmm.
You'd be lucky to book one that whole
Really,
year. You know, think
really,
about it. Yeah, as an actor, especially based in Atlanta, when before COVID, I'm talking
right?
pre-COVID even, when LA and New York had the markets and
Yep.
they were the big dogs, and everybody thought you came out of those markets, you were serious. Atlanta was just kind of getting
Yeah.
up and running.
Hmm.
So coming from Atlanta, I was always second guessing that. I was always looked at
Mm.
as. I even remember when I was on set for the Vampire Diaries, they said, "Oh, where are you from? LA or New York?" It was assumed. It was
Oh.
automatically assumed. And so I have experienced this on so many levels and so many times at this point where I'm like, yeah, that's where it feels like it's a very personal thing. It's like
Yeah.
I can handle that. I can take a no on the chin and know what's in my head is different than maybe what they're seeing. And even people that has told me that this was a bad idea off the rip, there's other apps like that. There's other things. Once they saw the quiz, which is what I saw in my head the whole time,
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to verbalize it. Those same people came back and said, this is nice. I want that. I want to get to that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, like, y'all, the quiz is phenomenal. Like, it's great. I mean, and I always say this because I think people think I just say it because, oh, you're a guest on my podcast. I will never give you false flattery ever.
Yeah.
So I
Tell
genuinely
me.
mean that. Like,
Tell me.
you're like,
You know.
like, I would never just tell you anything. But no, seriously, like, like, I
Mhm.
tested it out right before we got on here. It really, I was like, dang,
Yeah. No, for
it's
sure.
nice. It's well thought out
For sure.
and well thought through. And I can only see it going bigger from here,
Yeah.
right? And I think, and I mean, and I'm just grateful that I got to meet you before you got all extra
Oh,
famous. You know what I'm
no, no.
saying? But I think it's definitely a great app and a great opportunity for people to again be well versed in what they're doing and what they're being a part of.
Yeah.
And we all, I always say this: you don't think you're gonna be a part of politics, but politics is gonna be a part of you
One way or another.
one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I always go back to this. 2025 was such a wake up call for a lot of people because at the kitchen table, right? Because a lot of things were impacted, right?
Mhm.
And so, and whether you see good or bad, but things were impacted, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it's one of situations where now a lot of people are starting to wake up and really starting to be civically engaged. And I think this is a great app and opportunity to be able to be engaged but not feel that the only way you can engage is when voting and that's the only time that you
And
know
that's what people normally feel is like
yeah.
when it's election time and not even primaries. They
No,
don't even
nobody
have
know
that on
about the
their mind.
primaries.
That's the main.
That's the big one.
That's the one I'm pushing for on this right now, which is
Yes.
why elections are so at the forefront right now, because everyone needs to know that your filing deadlines may have already passed, depending on your state, but your
Yes.
primaries starting in March all the way through May, end of June, there's going to be primaries going on that we need to get out and actually be a part of.
Yes.
So
And that is going to determine who is even going to be on the ballot for the November general elections.
exactly, and you'd be surprised how many people don't realize they have the power to control who's on the ballot. They just
Absolutely.
take it as it is when they get it and continue to check those
Those
boxes.
and that is why I think your quiz is different from every other quiz or every poll or political app because it shows you your spectrum. It shows you your percentage,
Yep.
right? So you're thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'm this, I'm that, whatever. And when you actually are asked these questions and being challenged to, think through who and what you're voting for, it actually shows you like actually you're not, a little 50-50.
Hmm.
And that's okay.
That's
And
okay.
that's okay. And I think that's the
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I wanna also say, you know, with the future of civic engagement, kind of
Mhm.
going along with that, how do you see outside of just your app, right? And even with your app, how do you see technology shaping upcoming election cycles?
Oh man, it can it can make us or break us.
Yeah.
It can, it can be real time live analytics. It's something that I've been thinking about for this app is having real time election counts so that people can see it on their phone.
Yes.
It can become sort of a hub of actually engaging users on another level in real time. You see it on Netflix right now where they're engaging people on the shows in real time as the show is going on
Yeah,
live.
yeah.
That's how we can start engaging in politics as well. We can engage people in the elections real time and start really, even during debates,
Hmm.
have people in the audience, have people on their phones asking questions
Yeah.
for the candidates to answer. There's so many areas for us to grow, but there's also so much governance around it. There's
Yes.
two major companies that handle all the live election data, and you have to get approved by them, or you can't even do it. There's
Really?
so much. Yeah, all the news networks are approved by them, but if you're a young entrepreneur trying to build something, then it becomes a very very tough game for certain things that you want to implement. But yeah, there's just so much room for it. But then there's also surveillance.
Yeah.
So it's going to be surveillance or it's going to be a bridge. I would love to see it as a bridge, but we'll just see. We can
Yeah.
shape it. That's the big
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I really think that, I mean, that real time debate gonna get sticky. They don't have to feel that. But I think that's great
That's where
though,
we can
because
go.
it'll actually show what people actually want to hear.
Exactly.
And what, yeah.
And using AI, we have that power now.
Yeah.
We have the power to condense all these questions to similar questions to one question.
Hmm.
We have that power. It's just how do we choose to use it,
Yeah.
and who are we putting in office to using it? Are they using it for us or themselves? You
I just want to
know.
take a moment of silence because you said the quiet part out loud and it just didn't come from me. So I just want to let y'all know because I feel like I'm always saying the thing, but I'm glad you said the thing too. Because no, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's we can go there.
Mhm.
It's such a we are in such a very much me, right? Very selfish culture,
Mhm.
westernized culture. And most westernized cultures are like that, right? And set up like that. It was built off of that. I
Mhm.
think again, sometimes it feels like an oxymoron because it's very much built on a selfish culture, but then the system is like, well, we need to work together. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
then how? And I say that because you start to see that that's why people don't trust government. That's why
Mhm.
there's outside of corruption in government. And I know there's a lot going on within our own government that, people start to focus on, and then that becomes distractions away from, okay, well, this is that and this is this and this impacts how I see this person. And
Yeah.
and I always say ethos is a big piece in politics and in policy and how people make their decisions and how and why people choose to vote the way that they do.
Mhm.
Um and I think that when you have a system or a party, right, set up to where it is only to serve that thing or that entity, it becomes difficult, right? When knowingly the people have the power, knowingly that's how the
Mhm.
system was originally meant and built, but it's been perverted or corrupted. And it's not a dig towards a particular. I mean, like it's for both sides, right?
Both
It's
that. Yeah.
it's it's for the government in general. It doesn't have a partisan, a politic. It's none of that. It's for
Mhm.
everybody,
Yeah.
and everybody has played a part and played a piece into that. So I didn't want to get all too much my soapbox, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of mention that because I think we all feel that and
Mhm.
we see that, and it makes it, and I think that's what makes it disconnected for a lot of people to be engaged civically,
Yeah.
right? To feel connected into the debates they'll see. And you're thinking, ask the right questions, right?
You're asking, yeah,
you're,
you're asking about stuff I don't really
I
care
don't
about.
care about.
That's,
I
yeah,
care about how whether we gonna eat horse meat or not.
yeah.
Is this gonna be steak in the is this gonna be steak or horse
Yeah,
meat?
you see what I'm saying? Those
I'm
the
sorry.
stuff we talk, the stuff they debate on is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry.
crazy.
Like I have to bring it up because it's like, but that's a real
It's a
thing.
real, yeah,
So I think, but those are the things where I think people start to feel disconnected or they don't even engage civically. Like the 2024 elections, literally you had people in the millions. I think the number is it was 9 or 90 million people who did not even go and vote.
yeah. They felt hopeless.
They felt
Yeah,
hopeless. And people were like, oh, well, it's just gonna be this anyway, or people just gonna rig the election. And it's like we can't get so caught up in these distractions,
hmm,
right? That we lose sight and focus of what's really at stake and what's really important.
yeah,
And I think again, not to go too deep into the soapbox, but when you have that selfish piece, which plays a heavy part as to why people are not as engaged civically, I think that is what hinders the system from even working. But I think it's people like you that have the opportunity to build out apps, that have the knowledge and expertise to do the things that they can do, especially in this tech driven world. I
mhm,
think that can engage people civically, that gets people activated and motivated. And it's not always, I always consider engineers the introverted activists, right?
yeah.
Because y'all don't say much, but y'all
Oh,
actually
we're
speak
moving.
louder. Yeah,
We want to change. We want
yeah,
change.
yeah. Y'all just find y'all, and everybody has their lane of doing it. You're like, I'm not gonna go and protest and be all in the out, but I'm going.
I'm gonna set it up for everybody else to protest.
Absolutely. I'm gonna build a system. I'm in my
Yeah,
basement building a whole, robotics thing, whatever. But the
yeah,
point is like, I think that it shows that no matter where you are on a spectrum, no matter what career you have, you all play a part. And I think also, it wasn't one of the questions I was going to ask, but I do want to kind of touch a little bit on it because you as an actor, and I'm pretty sure you've seen the pushback that people think that actors should not speak up, and we see a lot of actors speak out politically, right?
hmm,
And sometimes choose a side, or and we also see not just only actors, but people in the sports area and just everywhere. I think, what is your thoughts, right, as an actor and also now as an engineer and someone who's an entrepreneur building out this app to engage politically, right? To have that voice or to do something. I guess what would be your thoughts, but also the thoughts for those that say that you shouldn't do it if you're not in this space, like you're not a
oh,
lobbyist, you're not a politician. Why are you,
yeah. I'm the one. I'm probably the most important person in the equation. Though I'm the one that's being served.
Yeah.
I'm the constituent. I'm the person. I'm the member of society that is along with however many billions of others that need, healthcare and Medicare, and that need, transportation, reliable transportation, that need a safe place for our children, a safe
Hmm.
place for us to grow up and get old, healthy food, all that stuff. So I think I have an opinion just like everybody else. The way I would relate it is like, as an actor, I often ask audience members who are not actors about my performance,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, you're the one watching it.
You're right.
You're the one that can tell me if I did a good job. And when millions of you agree, then it's a good job.
Right.
So we should look at politics the same way and not be so closed off. But I'd also say to those who say don't get involved, um, if you see something happening and you know that it's not right, I'd say you're more of a coward to not get involved than get involved. You probably do need to speak up, but maybe just moderate your tone, moderate what you're saying, and
Yeah.
focus on the actual problem. Maybe not attacking the candidates themselves, but the actions that they're taking,
Yeah.
which is all we're doing with this, is we're focusing on legal documents.
Right.
So I don't want to attack any candidate. I mean, I even looked at a great example was Joe Biden.
Hmm.
He's one of those people that when I look at his ideology score, which is another thing we're going to add on to it, he's changed over years.
Yeah.
Joe Biden from back in the day, civil rights and all that stuff that he voted on, and you would have hated him
Yeah.
then. You know what I mean? Like he would not become president, but you could see a huge shift in the last 10 years of his presidency versus the first 20. He was in the Senate for 30
Yes.
years. He was in Congress for 30 years.
Hmm.
So those are the things that I want to pay attention to and produce more change like that. I don't want to necessarily hate these congressmen.
Yeah.
I want them to become more like Biden. I want them to say, you know what, I was wrong for thinking that way. Let me change the way I move.
I'm glad that you brought that up in that particular piece because it shows that no matter who you are, how you vote and who you like, these are people.
Yeah.
And as people, we evolve. We evolve. We do not think, and I always say this even with my audience, like, if I say something on here, right, in real time, right, because I think that's another thing too. People process things and they process them differently and at different speeds and at different times.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, like, if I say something on here, I may come back and be like, oh, I've learned more, or I've had more time to process, or like, I'm not always stuck. I think we're so used to putting people in such boxes,
Yeah, exactly.
and that and sometimes people will conform to the box people put them in, that they just are stuck in that box, knowing that I'm like, it's okay to say that I was wrong. It's okay to change. It's okay to evolve politically, right? So I've seen people evolve and be very liberal and Democrat to now being a little bit more either conservative Democrat or more on the Republican side, right? And moderate Republican. And I've seen the other side of it. I think we're also seeing that either with Jeff Duncan, right, who's running.
He's moderate. He's pretty
Right.
close to my, yeah.
Right. And how he's transitioned from when he was, a lieutenant governor to now running for governorship, but how his political views have shifted, right? We've even seen that with other leaders in Congress, right? Senator John McCain, God rest his soul,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's a lot that we are seeing, and as people, and I think that grace has left us as a people.
Yes. Yeah.
And not just politically, I think in general, we don't hold empathy and space for people to change and grow and evolve and to mess up.
Yeah. And I don't know where that came from. I wish I did, but
Yeah.
it seemed like it was just so much open before. It seemed like it was so much more willing to change. Maybe it's because the speed of information has changed.
Yes.
So now everybody's got the input, and then everybody's giving their opinion right away. So now everybody's kind of doubling down on things. And yeah, it's just hard. But if we could get that same speed and element, maybe we could change that too.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in with this episode. I hope you got something out of it as much as I did. Again, please like, comment, follow, and subscribe. Until then, I'll see you soon. Bye.